Ellen, I think we had a fairly good year. In fact, there was a lot of projects that we had earmarked, and they have a lot of them have come, like Newmarket and Fergus TVR. And a big one, I think, is the Newmarket and Fergus sewerage upgrade, which will be great for the town and for the whole MD, in fact. And another thing is that we had an upgrade within Clare and Cork for the public lighting. Now that is coming to an end, and I'm delighted to say that in the Shannon area we're way up as regards that, which is very, very good indeed. And it is great to see that the flood relief for the Shannon town and the airport is advancing. And as regards the road, the motorway into the airport, I remember it just shows you how slow things can be. I put down a motion in MD a number of years ago for this, and it has taken so many years to do it. And I suppose when you're elected for 5 years, you pick out so many projects, etc., that you want to try and get solved. And this was one of the ones that I did going back well over 5 years ago, but it's great to see it to come to where it is at the moment.
And I think that's an indication, John, as well, that for those particularly, new councillors who think, 5 years, that's a long stint, I'll get loads done. Sometimes you have to be lucky enough to get re-elected to actually see some of your priorities and hopes followed through on or achieved.
You have indeed, and we all have a wish list when you get elected. But I've been there now since '99, and I have an awful lot of wish lists that I had, and I've always tried at the beginning of 5 years to pick them out and do my level best to get them over the line. You don't get them all over the line, but at least you have to have a programme for your 5 years, and I've always worked to that programme.
And with a programme, like, and every council will have a programme, John, are there certain elements on it, issues or projects that, you're realistic and say, well, look, I hope we can get progress on this, but if it happens, I'm not expecting it because for whatever reasons there might be great opposition to it, or just whatever it takes to achieve it will take so long. But I'll be happy if it is progressed. And then there are other ones that you feel these are definitely achievable, and if they don't happen, I am going to be pretty upset.
Oh, I can tell you that there's a lot of projects that you would expect that you get over the line, and to be honest, you'll be always adding them on to the next 5 years. But in fairness, there's one that I have been after for a good number of years now, but it is really coming to a head, and that's in connection with my own town of 6 Mile Bridge, where we have a major problem as regards secondary school. If you take the parish of 6 Mile Bridge, there's between 500 and 600 going to the primary schools there, and we have to provide a secondary school very, very soon, because a lot of these young people will be coming to the stage where they're looking for secondary places.
And that sounds like a pretty serious issue, and one that is going to have to be addressed, and we'll expand upon that a little later on, if you don't mind, when we look ahead to what you want to see happen for 2026. But Bill, just to bring you in, how do you view 2025 in your MD, West Clare? A lot achieved. Any disappointments?
Well, of course, as you know, there, John was saying it took him 5 or 6 years to get a project, but the project that you know about that has really been holding up the whole traffic situation here was Blake's Corner. I mean, that's going on since 2010. That's 16 years ago, and it's coming up to 8 years now in April since I approved the Part 8 for the inner relief road to go ahead, which went to Burke, and of course there was a third-party judicial objection into it, and I'm glad to hear just before Christmas that was settled, a mutual agreement settled with the third party, and hopefully that the TI will get down to work now with Clare County Council and start this project, because this has been embarrassing. The word embarrassing, I mean, for the whole country, not only for the people in North Clare, but I mean, you'd actually want to see the crowd that came to Lahinch here with the fine weather for the last 10 days. The traffic yesterday going back to Ennis Diamond was out near Lahinch, and hopefully that that this has been a huge disappointment to me and other councillors that started this way back in 2018 when we approved the Part 8. And of course, the only reason we went for the inner relief road that time is because we met the TII and they're the NRA that time, the National Roads Authority. They're now the TII. We went to Dublin and we met them and we asked them would they consider going away from the inner relief road and leaving the two protected structures at Lakes and Ennis and spend the money on the outer relief road or a bypass, which would not affect Ennis Diamond or the shops in Ennis Diamond. But they said no way that was going to cost too much money. I think it was around 17 million at the time back in 2017. And the inner relief road was going to cost about 6 or 7 million. Now we believe if the inner relief road goes ahead, it's going to cost about 15 or 16 million. And they've wasted all that time and that money with Blake's Corner and the inner relief road. And at least that was a big disappointment. But I'm glad that we got the news there before Christmas that Blake's Corner is going to go ahead and hopefully it'll go to full design now and tender, and something will start for 2026.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking there, John, about projects that are things you want to achieve that will take longer than 5 years. I mean, the conversation around a potential solution to the congestion there at Blake's Corner, of course, we know goes back several decades. Bill, what would you say to those who say the inner relief road scheme could actually end up creating more bottlenecks?
Well, there is a concern, and if when it does come up for conversation, they're saying, Bill, do you realise that this may not work, especially coming out onto the narrow section beside Linnell's Undertakers, coming across there, because, as you know, there's the houses are there opposite it, and it's a very bad angle to try and for trucks and huge trucks and buses, especially on the buses that are coming to the Cliffs of Moher and going back that way, because that's the way the NTA, that's the way they have to go. I just don't know. I just hope that the consultants and the engineers, or the geniuses as we would call them at this stage, if this works, it would be great. But some relief, I don't want to knock it now because we're waiting so long for this to happen that my own preference would be the outer relief road. Of course it would be, and I think it would be a lot of other people's. But look, we have to go with what we've been offered by the TII, and hopefully that the design is going to work. But some people are very sceptical that it may not work.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, that is understandable. And speaking, John, about issues or projects that perhaps haven't progressed as quickly as they should have, are there any for you? And you look back over the last 12 months that you would have hoped by year end would have been a bit further along the road in terms of progression.
Well, just before I go to that, successes that I see is that the airport, fantastic success, being in our MD, passenger numbers up. And then when you look at Bunratty Castle's 600th anniversary, tis great to see that, and tis doing so well. And down your own part of the county to see the Springfield Clonlara water scheme, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, very much welcomed, yeah.
And that is really good indeed. Now there is projects that I did hope that we would get across, and the most important ones I think is that, and we have been trying, and every councillor I think has been trying, and that's in connection with traffic calming measures in our villages and towns. Speed is such a major issue, and especially going into villages and towns. And I mean, there's so many that we have been looking at. I'll tell you, in Cathaoirligh alone, I've been trying to get speed ramps and traffic calming measures there for years, and 'tis still the same. We haven't got over that. But 'tis very, very important that the council, in coming into 2026, that we'll have to sit down and with An Garda Síochána and do something about the speeding in villages and towns, because we can see the number of the fatalities that we this year, there were up 15, and this has to be tackled, and that is one thing that we have been knocking at this door for a long, long time, but getting no satisfaction as such.
And road deaths is something we're going to be touching on later on in the show. And I know in recent years they've put speed ramps in the village in Clonlara, and they've worked very well. So they are very much needed. John touched on some positives there, Bill. The last 12 months, any positives that come to mind from the West Clare MD?
Yes, we have the new car park in Ennis Diamond that opened there around 3 months ago. It can accommodate 49 cars. there was a lot of congestion and a lot of car parking by people that were working in the shops and banks and other places on the main street. But now that has been that congestion has been alleviated by the no car park in Monastery Lane, and it is really doing its job there now. We also have there's a 3.6 million roads project coming down for 2026. But unfortunately, I have to say that I'm disappointed with the roads budget that we had last year, even though we got a slight increase for West Clare. We have the most kilometres of the 4 MDs in North West Clare, and for some reason we can't seem to get enough money from central government to fund the restoration and the maintenance of those roads. And we've been getting an awful lot of complaints. I'd say they were saying housing in towns and cities, but our biggest disappointment here was the upkeep of the roads and it isn't the lack of maintenance because of the main underground. It's the lack of funding that's not coming through from central government, and we're back there begging again now for more work on the roads. And of course, the Cliffs of Moher, the walk was closed there, which caused a bit of controversy. I feel fairly optimistic that we're getting places now with the landowners as regards getting the north side of that, the Cliffs of Moher walk opened for the 2026 season, because there's 500,000 there of RS funding granted for the repair work on the north side, and hopefully that can be replicated on the south side. But I'd like to see the north side opened this year, starting maybe just after the board season is finished, that they'll be able to, before it starts, that they'll be able to go in there and do this work. And that's very positive. And from that point of view, it's going to be a very busy year for us here and with my colleagues in West Clare, because as you know, in September, we're hosting the Irish Open in Dunbeg, and we have the Walker Cup here in Lahinch. And we've already had a lot of meetings as regards traffic management and the festivities, in Dunbeg and in Lahinch, and how they're going to be managed. And hopefully that it will be as successful as Lahinch was back in 2019, which was just great and really gave Lahinch a great name. And hopefully that Dunbeg will be able to follow on. And I know that we can do it here with the Walker Cup in September.
Yeah, and I want to come back to you on those events, and particularly the issue of investment in roads and the roads infrastructure in West Clare, because I think that all ties in, and it is a topic that has cropped up numerous times on Morning Focus. But just to come back to you, John Crowe, looking ahead to 2026 in terms of priorities for you in your MD and what you want to see progressed. Let's start with the issue with the schools again. Can you just expand upon that, what the situation is and what the possible solutions are, and if there aren't any, where you go next in terms of students in 6 Mile Bridge who need to find a secondary school?
I think the only solution is a secondary school in 6 Mile Bridge. It would cover all the areas around, which is, Kilmurray and 6 Mile Bridge, when you look at it, the one parish where you'll be touching up on 600 pupils going to primary school there. Now, Shannon too, schools are full, and Tulla is under pressure, Limerick is under pressure. So if you take Newmarket and all that area, Bunratty, 6 Mile Bridge and Cratloe and all that, there's going to be desperate problems to try and get these young people into it.
And even building, if you were to get the green light for the construction of a secondary school, an additional secondary school in 6 Mile Bridge, that's going to take a number of years to complete. What do you do for students over the next year or two if these other schools in the surrounding areas have the full up sign or up on the door or the front door or are close to it?
We have the problem, would you believe, already, in fact.
So what do you do now in the present tense?
This year alone, but to be honest, we have to start and we have to take this as a major priority. And first of all, I'm looking for people to join me in this campaign, and I've got a lot of names already. So I've an awful lot of figures put together as well. So my next step now is to look for a meeting with the Minister for Education. I think this is a major problem, and we have to give it 100%.
Okay. Bill, let's touch back on the roads for you, because I'm sure that's it's not just a big issue for 2026 for us, Clare. It seems to be a big issue for the MD every year. We get so many, when we cover issues with the roads or roads infrastructure or infrastructural issues, the roads in West Clare inevitably crops up, and how it can be a drawback from a number of different perspectives, be it people commuting, also tourism, business, and for big events like, as you mentioned, the Walker Cup and the Irish Open in Doonbeg. That is really when I suppose the detrimental condition of some of the roads really comes to the fore. Talk to us a bit more about that, and how do you see any additional funding coming from central government? Is that likely to come in the near future to improve the situation somewhat?
Well, there's a project there now, Alan, that's going back at least 30 years, and it had the Irish Open went ahead very successfully. But I was a councillor at the time, and I was involved in a lot of the of what was happening. But we did look for the at Killaloe, the N85 to be done there. That bad section there in Killaloe.
Yeah.
And it's an absolute disgrace. That's gone on now with over 30 years, and it's still left. And we're looking for that part of that road now for the Walker Cup. I know that back in Doonbeg they're looking for the part of the N68 to be done, but that's a treacherous part of the road there in Killaloe. And it can't be left much longer the way it is for our tourists coming in to the area. So I mean, for that and Blake's, and the smaller, the local roads, there's certainly very little work being done on the local roads. I mean, we've been told by our engineers now that the day of the shovel opening the side drains is gone. That's what they're telling us now. That's what our engineers are telling us. So we've asked for maybe mini diggers to be brought in to each area, or 2 or 3 of them, and to let the water off the side of the roads, which is not being done. And that's what's causing with the amount of rain we're getting, it's washing the surface after being resurfaced. It's washing it away again because there's no place for the water to go. But I'm being told by engineers that it's now taken up to 5 general operatives to open a side drain because of the health and safety regulations. And it's hard to believe that this was all done manually by shovel years ago, and now it's taken 5 men to do it because of health and safety. And maybe they're going a bit overboard with health and safety. And in my opinion, because I can't understand how it would take 5 people to, I know you have to do traffic control and all that, but it's certainly a big concern. And the complaints I'm getting is out of the country is that they see people coming out and they're filling potholes where there's water inside them, and they're bubbling up the following day. I'm not saying that the workmanship is not good, but it just doesn't. It's not working, and the quality of the work. They're complaining to me that how can you if the water isn't let go and if the potholes are filled with water inside them, that you're not going to have proper roads, you're not going to have proper structure. But on the positives, we had a good year here, as you know. We have after the storm on, there was a lot of damage done to the pier in the scanner, and that was completed. We have footworks done in the scanner in Listonverna. There's a footpath going all the way now from Dolan Pier over to Fisher's Cross, all the way over. And there's a scheme coming up now. There's money approved for a public realm scheme in Ennis, which is going to cost about €1 million, and it's starting in early 2026 around the square and Parliament Street. And hopefully, I mean, that went out on public display in 2023, and submissions come in, but everything is above board. Everything is approved now, and they're hoping for an investment of over €1 million in the town of Ennis, starting early in 2026.
That should certainly be a positive once completed. We're almost out of time, gents, but just finally, John, to come back to you. You feeling positive about 2026? What message would you like to give to people in your MD about what lies ahead?
Well, I suppose a wish list that I have, and it isn't that big at this stage. The rail link, I think, is very, very important from 6 Mile Bridge to Shannon, which would open up the whole area where you have a train station in 6 Mile Bridge, bringing people from all over the country. That's a major one. The river walk from Shannon Bunratty to 6 Mile Bridge. And the active travel, I think, that is only in Shannon and in Ennis, it should be opened up up to all the county, I believe. It needs to be done. So the Shannon Town Master Plan, especially the Shannon Hub, is definitely needs to be pushed. And the Six Mile Bridge Town Team first plan, and Ardna Crusher, I think, to at Lunkard Cycleway and Walkway is something that should be finished as well.
Okay.
And the Mealich footpaths, and there's great work being done in Bunratty by the team down there, and they should be supported as well financially.
Okay. Final word to yourself, Bill, for people living in your MD about the coming year.
Yeah, John, there's something that's really close to me, and I've been working on it for the last 6 years. Is that you might say, Bill, it's not a councillor's problem, but it certainly is, because I have, for the last 3 or 4 months, I've been working trying to get elderly people respite and long-term stay. And we have our community hospital half a mile in the road here from me, with a new ward, a 6-bed ward, closed down since 2019. Now, I've asked, and Sandra Broderick was in the council there just 3 weeks ago, and I challenged her on the issue of what is happening. But unfortunately, we ran out of time at the meeting, and she said she would come back to me. But this new ward is left in here, and there are elderly people that worked hard all their life in this area that can't get a nursing home. They're going down to Limerick, they're going up to Gort, they're going all over the place to try and get respite. And I know but I have been working with these nurses and the nursing homes to try and get people. And we have this facility. And even when I was a councillor before in Ennis, when they sold the Martin in Ennis, I asked Clare March to give a donation of 50,000 to the hospital in Ennis, which they did. And there was the Friends of Ennis Hospital have hundreds of thousands of pounds invested in this community hospital, and yet there's a ward closed down there since 2019. Whether it's management, whether it's funding, or whatever it is, but there's something seriously wrong. And I'm very disappointed.
Okay.
And hopefully that will rectify itself in 2026.
Okay, we do have to leave it there, gents. We're going to be focusing on the other 2 MDs after the break. But my thanks to Bill Slattery there, the Lahinch Fine Gael councillor, and Cathaoirligh of the West Clare MD, and to the Cathaoirligh of the Shannon MD, the 6 Mile Bridge Fine Gael councillor, John Crowe. Thank you very much as well for joining me on the show. Lots more to come. We'll be back after this break. We're continuing our look back over 2025 and look ahead to this year with 2 more of the county's municipal district, Cathaoirligh, joined in studio by the Cathaoirligh of the Killaloe MD, the Whitegate Fine Gael councillor Pat Burke, and standing in for the Cathaoirligh of the Ennis MD, Mary Howard, is the Fianna Fáil Deputy Mayor Pat Daly. Gents, a very good morning to both of you. Thanks very much for coming in.
Morning, Alan.
Morning, Alan.
Pat Daly, when you reflect on 2025, how was it from the perspective of the Ennis Municipal District? A good one? Any issues that come to the fore, or are you overall generally happy?
Well, I think it finished very positive anyway, Alan, in that we had a public realm that was going on for the last 18 months, and thank God it finished there in the end of November, and you could see the fruits of it around the Christmas. The town is looking beautiful.
It was kind of, when the earlier stages of when it was happening, and you could understand, we were hearing complaints from businesses that it was affecting footfall and so on, Pat, yeah. But very much the message that was being put out was short-term pain for long-term gain. And do you think that is... That is very much the case?
It has paid off in a big way. Yeah, it has. Yeah, I spoke to a lot of the business people now over the Christmas, and they were very happy with it. It was a pleasure to walk through the streets of Ennis. The shopping there was people coming from Galway and Limerick, in trains, which is a great way to come, by the way. Shopping, which is, people are coming to see the town. It's a beautiful town now, and it kept that medieval style, but it upgraded the town. But, it's looking great. And I suppose that was really the highlight of the year. A lot of other things happened. Rogue won the double, of course. I have to bring in that. I was
wondering how long it would take you to mention that. Pat Burke slightly raising his eyes to heaven there. He's heard enough about it already.
Being a former chairman of the club and a hurler with Rogue, it was great, really. Yeah. So it brought a great life into the town. All those matches, over the year.
Okay, very good. 2025 for the Killaloe MD, Pat Burke.
Yes, Alan, indeed. I suppose if every year was as productive as 2025 would be doing, it was a busy year, yeah. And a lot delivered, I suppose, in the Killaloe MD, to be fair, and nothing bigger than the opening of the Killaloe Bridge and bypass.
Which is looking wonderful, I have to say.
Absolutely, yeah. Game changer for, not alone maybe for East Clare, but for the whole of Clare. And it seems now that a lot of traffic are using the bypass and coming on to Tumgraney, maybe to come, into East Clare, maybe all the way to Ennis, because it's quite noticeable, the increase in traffic on the regional road from Killaloe on to Tumgraney and that. So apart from the traffic that we're always using Killaloe, it seems to have, there's for and against that, I suppose, increased traffic. But fantastic project. Took a long time to deliver it. When I went into the council first in 2009, it was being spoken about, and a man told me, that'll never happen, but it did.
Which touches back on what we were saying before the break with John Crowe, that, as a councillor, you nearly have to look beyond a first term of 5 years to see progression or satisfaction in certain projects.
And, the commuting time has been so much reduced now for people, and neighbours of mine now, one girl in particular who teaches school out in County Limerick, 15 minutes off her time in the morning, no stop, around the roundabouts and gone. It is a fantastic project. And
of course that meant then, Pat, that the Killaloe Ballina Bridge, the original bridge, was temporarily pedestrianised to see how that would work. I know there were some people, you're always going to have some who are for, some against. It's now going to be permanently pedestrianised. Is that logical outcome given the new bridge is in place? And
the people now have accepted that the right decision was taken to pedestrianise the old bridge. At the time there was a petition, and it was 2-1 in favour. Now you'll always have people with issues, but even talking to one of the residents there from Ballyvalley into the canal bank along there, they're able to come out their doors now in safety and in comfort, because all the traffic has gone up the hill on the bypass. And great events there over Christmas. We had maybe a controversial Christmas tree. Some people were questioning it, the merits of it, etc. But I was down there that evening, and the crowds and the families and kids on the old bridge with no traffic. So it's going to be, I was always in favour of it myself from day one, that it'll become a tourist. Killaloe Ballina is obviously a tourist area anyway, but the pedestrianisation of the old bridge will be a feature in itself and a tourist attraction. Yeah,
and definitely positives there in Killaloe. Pat Daly, the new year for the NSMD. What is on your list of things you want to see happen or progressed or finished? And are they issues or projects that a lot of other councillors in the MD are concerned about as well?
Well, if you spoke to an auctioneer in the town of Ennis at the moment, they're worried people because their private houses are not there at the moment. If you went into an auctioneer today, you would find it very hard to get a choice of 10 houses. One time you could get 50 or 60, and that is a problem. Social housing, affordable housing. There's a huge shortage of houses. Since I went into the council nearly 27 years ago, there's the day that I get 5 to 6 calls looking for social housing. You know what I mean? This is regular every day of the week, So that has not, it's the one area that will never be solved. I don't know what's wrong. I think, as far as the hospital is concerned, I think we need a site, a service site for the hospital. And, when you look at, they're saying Ennis is too far from Limerick, but when you look at, Ennis is a rural town, similar to Letterkenny, Castlebar, Tralee, they're under the wing of Galway. Tralee is under the wing of Cork, so 70, 80 miles away. Letterkenny must be 120 miles from Galway. Yet Ennis is only 23 miles from Limerick, and consultants are going up and down that road every day of the week.
So you don't think Ennis as a location would be a drawback? Because this was a point you put out when we were discussing this towards the end of last year with the news the government is going to try and progress all 3 options in that HICWA review. And one of them was that, again, West Clare people there feel particularly isolated and far away from University Hospital Limerick. But if we saw a second Model 3 hospital, but it was in Limerick, would it still be a big disappointment for them?
To me it would be.
And for people in Ennis?
It would, of course, yes. It's a population of 130,000 people. I mean, West Clare, North Clare. Traditionally, North Clare people go to Galway, but from Ennis back to West Clare, there's thousands. There must be 100,000 people. And why not have it in Ennis, near the bypass somewhere? Pick a site. Clare County Council have been asked to get a service site and do it and get it there. And because, it's day in. I was a member of the old Midwestern Health Board and the HEC West Forum, and there was no comparison. The old Midwestern Health Board got things done, and you had 3 counties. Now you have 12 counties, and I think that it needs. you know, Ennis needs the hospital badly. You know, it does, an A&E that will service the county.
When you think of other things that you want to see happen in 2026, I know the Ennis Town bus service was postponed.
Yeah.
It looks like it'll be summer 2026. I suppose when I use the word blow, given it is the summer, is it that big a setback, or is it just slightly disappointing?
No. It's going to come. You know what I mean? It's only 6 months down the road. You know, there are other things too, like the site in Rush. I think something needs to be done there.
That's a very significant size site.
Oh, it is, and you know, we lost up to 400 jobs there in Rush, Syntax previously, and they've never been replaced. And I can tell you, if it was outside Dublin to be replaced, the following week. So I would ask their Oireachtas members to push and get an industry in there that'll give employment to the youth of this county.
Pat Burke, when you look ahead to the rest of coming 12 months for the Killaloe MD, what are the projects, priorities that you and your colleagues want to see pushed ahead, progressed, or even finished where possible?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to go back to 25 for a moment, Alan. And we have a lot of projects delivered in 25. Going forward, we're looking at different issues, if you like. So if I can just touch back on we had the Ennis Visitor Centre opened as well.
Which we did a summer show from, Morning Focus, and looked absolutely fabulous, I must say.
Yes, indeed, in my own parish there. And they had 6,000 visitors visited the Visitor Centre from June to October. So we're looking for that, you know, to double that perhaps next year, whatever, when it opens.
And I must say, on that, Pat, I did love the kind of mixture of the old style red brick building, but inside the very modern technology in terms of, you know, the visitor experience.
Yes, indeed. And when I have to blow my own trumpet here a bit, because I recommended to the council at the time to have a look at the red brick house, the old rectory, when there was dissatisfaction with a different site, and I knew it was getting tricky. I went to the county manager at the time and said, I pleaded with them to look at the rectory, and they did, and subsequently bought it. And it was also Mount Shannon got public realm works to coincide with the visitor centre, so a big upgrade to the street there and traffic calming measures, etc. We have a major job going on in Scariff at the moment under a previous RRDF, public realm works, and we hope to see the opening of the new car park, Digi Hub and Community Centre in Scariff in mid-26 as well. I suppose Killaloe Ballina, then we touched on it earlier, they got €1 million in RRDF for a mobility plan for Killaloe Ballina, and then it was disappointing for Crusheen, because we had a big application done for Crusheen, thanks to Brian McCarthy, for the reopening of the train station and other works in Crusheen, and unfortunately that application wasn't successful. Recently then, under the Town and Village Renewal, Mount Shannon got 500,000 to repurpose the old community hall there. So an awful lot went on in 25, as I said earlier, if every year could be as productive. So going forward in 26...
Will 26 only be a disappointment then by comparison? Because it sounds like, as you said, what was achieved in 25 doesn't always happen.
Doesn't always happen, but we're focusing now, and I'm certainly focusing on rural depopulation. You know, we have the public realm now and lots of projects like that, and fancy brick paving and all of that. But if we don't get people into rural villages in East Clare, we're going to be in trouble going forward. You know, if you take Broadford, for example, waiting on a wastewater treatment plant, still waiting, despite all the promises, and we're told now that it's making progress. But if you know, it needs to happen. There's other villages there that aren't in the pipeline for a treatment plant at all, and they're dying on their feet, shops closing, pubs closing, etc. But we need to get housing. Clare is an unusual county in that you have Ennis in the middle of the county, the motorway runs down the middle of the county,
and either side of it.
So West Clare and East Clare, then the further out you go, you have serious rural depopulation. And I've looked at our neighbouring counties that don't have the same issue, be it Galway or Limerick, you know, where they don't have a motorway splitting the county. They have their towns and their villages all equidistant kind of thing. So Clare is unusual from that point of view. Now, I wouldn't live anywhere else, only Whitegate, but at the same time, we're not getting people there because developers aren't interested in developing in the rural villages. In the Killaloe MD, Crusheen, Tulla, Quinn, are bursting at the seams. 6 Mile Bridge on the border of the Killaloe MD. We heard John Crowe talking about it there.
Yeah.
There, houses after houses, but we can't get a house. In Whitegate, Bodyke, the Mills, Fecal, all these villages, and that's my focus for the remainder of this council term, and I'll be constantly beating that drum. And I've spoken to the CEO Gordon Daly about it, as have other councillors. So that's the real challenge going forward.
Well, hopefully
is housing. We have all the fancy brickwork now and the public realm and all of that, but we need people.
The foundational stuff. Okay, well, look, hopefully, folks, if we're talking to both of you this time 12 months, you'll have a few green ticks beside some of those projects, aims and priorities. The two Pats, thank you very much, Pat Daly and Pat Burke. Thanks very much for joining me on Morning Focus.